We have all of the things that we need here to make a syrup. As I mentioned before, one of the disadvantages of water-based medicines is that they have a short shelf life. They go bad after 24 hours. If you keep them in the refrigerator, they will last longer, 4 or 5 days. But what a syrup is about preserving a water-based medicine a little bit longer. And we do that by adding a sweetener into it. And sweeteners, most sweeteners are stable at room temperature. You'll notice things like honey and maple syrup and evaporated cane sugar or regular white refined sugar. None of them need to be refrigerated. They're all stable. And if for those of you that are familiar with maple syrup as a sweetener, the process of maple syrup is about cooking down the maple sap, the sap from the maple tree, until the concentration of sugar is high enough to preserve it. So really, by definition, many of these sweeteners that we use on a regular basis are stable at room temperature. So what we're doing with a syrup is that we're taking a water-based preparation and we're adding a sweetener to it. And the sweetener acts as a preservative to help preserve the water. So the first thing that we do is that we want to reduce and concentrate the medicinal properties of the plants that we use into a small volume of water or smaller volume of water so that we can preserve less, right? Because if we concentrate the medicinal plant constituents, we have to use less sweetener and we save less of it. And so medicine is more concentrated and a little bit more convenient and more economical because we have to use less of the sweetener. So to start with our water-based medicine, we're going to use the same proportions of herbs to water that we've been talking about throughout this entire tutorial. And we're going to start by preparing it as a decoction. And I have my hot plate set up so that I can demonstrate making this herbal syrup. And the entire basis of the syrup is that we really want to reduce, and as I said, reduce and concentrate the medicinal properties of the plant. So we're going to make a decoction, but instead of simply simmering it for 15 to 20 minutes, we're actually going to cook it until the water volume that we started with is reduced by half. So if I start with 3 cups of water, which I'm going to today, I will cook it until it reduces to 1.5 cups of water. So I have 3 cups of water measured here. I'm going to pour it into my pan and turn the heat on. As I mentioned, we're going to allow this to reduce by half. So I like this clear glass pan. I can easily see how much it's reduced. If you're using a metal saucepan, or even sometimes on the glass saucepan, there will be a ring, sort of a line around where the water level began. And that can also be a good way to judge the water volume. You will know when you finish and you strain it how much water was, how much water you're left with and whether or not you reduced it by exactly a half or not. Most of it's just eyeballing and you have to hope that you get it pretty right. So here I have 3 cups of water and I'm going to need 3 tablespoons of dried herb, or I would need 6 tablespoons of fresh herb. And what we're going to make today is an herbal syrup for cardiovascular health. So I have several herbs here that I've selected. Hawthorn berries, we'll use those. These are dried hawthorn berries. Motherwort herb, which is an excellent herb for the heart. And this is a leaf and flower. We use the leaf and flower of motherwort. And then some yarrow, and yarrow we also use the leaf and flower. And yarrow is blooming outside where I live, so I've harvested some fresh yarrow for us to use. So we have these 3 herbs, and as you can see, we have a berry, we have leaf and flower. So when you make an herbal syrup, even though we're starting with a decoction, you can use the more tender leaves and flowers that we talked about earlier, preparing as a tea. With a syrup, because of the reduction process, it's appropriate to use any type of herb. We're taking the decoction process a step further and actually using the decoction as a way to concentrate the medicinal properties, as I mentioned before. So you can use any type of herb, but it also works excellent for the harder, more fibrous herbs like berries or barks. So I have 3 herbs that I'd like to use in equal parts in my preparation. So I'm gonna, and like I said, I had 3 cups of water that I began with. So I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of hawthorn berry dried, 1 tablespoon of dried motherwort, and 2 tablespoons of fresh yarrow. And that will give me the right proportions of either 1 tablespoon of dried herb or 2 tablespoons of fresh herb for every cup of water. So I'll start with my hawthorn berries. One tablespoon hawthorn berries. 1 tablespoon of motherwort leaf and flower. And this is an example of an herb that's going to be very hard to scoop out with a tablespoon. And it's very fluffy and not very compact. So I'm going to use a nice big heaping tablespoon there. Sometimes with my syrups, I even add a little extra herb because I want it to be really strong and rich and concentrated. And then I have this yarrow that I just picked, and so I'm going to cut this up with some scissors and get it into smaller pieces, and then I'm going to add it in.